going to be a playback available within 24 hours. So, Richard, hello.
Fantastic, Stephen. Awesome intro as always. How are you doing? All good?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. I'm trying to scan that question. I'm going to read it live, and so reading out live is like at school, isn't it? But I'm thinking somebody mentioned they wouldn't mind this as an audio podcast, so you could hear it without having to listen to adverts on YouTube and stuff like that. So I will read the questions to the best of my ability. So if you're listening on the audio, hello. Anyway, right, here we go. So this is from Jack or Jacqueline. Hello at the top there. Hi, both. Thank you for this Q&A. If coming at this from having no obvious health concerns, what measurable benefits can I expect? I know everyone is different, but unlike waiting for health conditions to improve, would it be that you would not be waiting as long? I am 3 weeks in. How do I know if I'm in ketosis? And if my cholesterol being high, total 9.2, how long before I should get it rechecked? Sean Baker says it should not be ignored, but says more info. He also says someone with a BMI of below 25 can have a higher cholesterol. That's definitely true. My BMI is 21.8. This way of eating has also caused me to have heart palpitations. I have been glugging your unflavoured electrolytes for this, and leg cramps not helping yet. Sorry, a bit long-winded and cheeky, more than one question. Fire away, Rich.
That's a long question, isn't it? First of all, hello all. Great to see you all. Numbers growing slowly. Let's look at that. So what are we? A couple of weeks in, measurable benefits. So, I mean, look, if you're coming from and we covered this a little bit last night, didn't we, in regards to one of the questions there, someone was asking, or they stated, wasn't it, that the benefits that they've seen haven't been as big as benefits that other people have mentioned. And, as Stephen mentioned, if you were coming from a background of being a type 2 diabetic and clinically obese and suffering with a myriad of health problems, when you gravitate into this way of eating, you're going to notice a bigger result and quicker. If you are healthy, then obviously, you're coming from a healthy background, there's a lot less that needs to be addressed. So I guess the difference that you're going to recognize is going to be less. But that doesn't mean that you can't be healthier. We can all be healthier. And what is healthy? A lot of people that I work with come from a background in which they say that they've always eaten healthy. Now, what they believe to be eating healthy and what I believe and Stephen believes to be eating healthy could be two different things. We know that processed foods are detrimental. We don't want processed foods. Grains are also not healthy. Vegetable oils, contrary to popular belief, are also not healthy. And I'll probably break some hearts with this one, that many greens and vegetables in general are not as healthy as people would be led to believe. And we covered the transition last night in regards from being a person living a standard lifestyle, becoming healthier if they were a vegan, eating cleanly, and then healthier if they became a vegetarian, and healthier still if they gravitated to low carb, then a dirty keto lifestyle, a standard keto, clean keto, carnivore, and so on and so forth. So there are always steps that we can make. Measurable benefits, I mean, how do you feel? That's going to be the biggest thing for me. I get my bloods tested fairly regularly. It's not for my benefit. I don't test my bloods for my benefit. I test for other people's benefit, so I can show them the results, particularly in regards to cholesterol, which is a big concern for most people, which we can get into now. But as Stephen says, the blood testing is only a gauge. It's a tool. We shouldn't take it as golden. If we feel good, but the results show that something's amiss, then there's no problem. If we don't feel well and the bloods maybe highlight there could be a factor there, then we need to address it. So how do you feel would be the biggest thing? What's it coming back to? Unlike with your health, 3 weeks in, how do you know if you're in ketosis? If you are restricting carbohydrate to less than 20 grams per day, then you're going to be in a ketogenic state within as little as 3 days. It could happen sooner. As long as you are genuinely consuming less than that 20 grams per day, when I began my journey, I was consuming way more, despite tracking and being convinced that I wasn't, because there are lots of nasties hidden in other compounds. A lot of the keto treats that we consume contain nasty sweeteners in the form of xylitol, maltitol. Coming away from keto treats, even if you were looking at diet supplements, things that would contain maltodextrin. Maltodextrin scores higher on the glycemic index than sugar does. So that's going to elicit a further insulin response. It isn't just about carbohydrate either. There are other factors in regards to stress factors, which can be elicited from mental stress, physical stress, or coffee, and so on and so forth. So there are lots of factors. But if you are looking for a measurement for testing, the cheapest way is the urine test strips. So you just pass water over the tip of the strip, and this will tell you if you are wasting ketones. And the reason I say wasting is that this is what we do when we initially gravitate into a ketogenic state. We are not efficient in producing ketones. So many of the ketones that we are making are not being utilized efficiently. They're being wasted through acetoacetate and acetone, so through our breath and through our urine. But it is a good indicator. It means that you're on the right path. Over time, the pathways and systems that are tied in with this production and utilization, the MCTs, the monocarboxylate transporters, and enzymes BDH, ACAT, and SCOT will be upregulated to the point where we can produce and utilize ketones at a higher rate. And this is when we convert most into beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB. So there are 3 ketone bodies: beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, and acetone. Acetoacetate and acetone can be wasted. Beta-hydroxybutyrate is the creme de la creme. This is what we want to gravitate towards, work towards. This is why maybe falling off the wagon or having little treats along the way can slow the process down. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I believe that incremental changes are more beneficial, more sustainable. But every time we do gravitate away from that, it does slow and hinder the process down. Alcohol being another one. Alcohol won't pull you from a ketogenic state if it's pure alcohol in the form of, and by pure, I mean not pure alcohol, but but the stronger alcohols like whiskey, gin, and vodka, for example, or a strong wine. Lagers and beers are very carb heavy, and they come from grains also. The spirits contain less or no sugar, so they are not going to pull you from a ketogenic state. But the alcohol will take oxidative priority. It's going to take preference to the other fuels that are being utilized within the body, because it's a poison. So the body's going to excrete this toxin first before it comes back into fat burning. This is why alcohol can slow down weight loss. It doesn't mean it's going to pull you from a ketogenic state. But in an ideal world, we wouldn't drink alcohol either. But, I do live in the real world, and I understand that people still like to drink. I used to drink every night. I don't drink at all anymore. I'm not telling you that you need to do that, but it's all about the rule and not the exception. So consistency is key. So the test strips are a fantastic way, cheap way. The breath monitor, quite expensive. I'm not a fan of the breath monitors, because the acetone and the acetoacetate that we're wasting, we don't waste it for an awful long time. So when it comes towards using the breath monitors, which I think the last time I checked are pretty expensive, it seems like an expensive way to measure ketones when we can do it very cheaply through the urine strips. And it comes back to how you feel. And again, there is a process involved. We are going to feel not too brilliant initially. We are coming from a lifetime of abuse, to what better term to use. We have abused our bodies, even if we think that we've been feeding it the correct nutrients. We've been pummeling our bodies with these toxins for a long time. The gut microbiome is geared up to using glucose for fuel. It's geared up to excreting toxins, and now we are changing its energy source, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's taken a lifetime to build to where we are. These changes are not going to happen within a day or two. It does take time, and it does happen quicker with some people than others. I think if you're coming from a sick state, I think you're going to notice more benefit sooner, but it's going to be a longer process. So I think the benefit you're going to see sooner, but the road to recovery is going to take longer, if that makes any sense. How you feel for me is going to be the best metric there. But Just reading into this now. I mean, blood tests and cholesterol. Cholesterol is one of the biggest misconceptions. It's one of the biggest lies that we've ever been fed. Cholesterol is essential for life. We can't live without cholesterol. It's essential for cell formation, cell communication, nutrient absorption, nutrient transportation, the production of hormones, and it's essential for healing. As you know, many of you are regulars are on, have heard me use that exact same line many, many times. And that's the best way to remember these things, through repetition. And this is why I repeat things in the same order, because that's how I learn them. But cholesterol is essential for life. Every cell in the body is made of cholesterol. We can't live without cholesterol. LDL in particular, which is touted as the bad cholesterol, is the cholesterol that travels through the body, dropping off lipid cargo to heal and repair your body. That's what LDL does. It circulates the body to drop off lipid cargo to heal and repair your body. So that doesn't sound too bad to me. Now, in regards to what Sean references, we should get it checked. Yes, we should get it checked, but not for the reason that you think. In my opinion, we need to understand what pattern our LDL is, whether it is pattern A or pattern B. As nature intended, LDL is healthy for us. It heals and repairs the body. It goes along its merry way, carrying out its job and keeps us fit and healthy. But it can become damaged. When it becomes damaged through glycation and oxidation, glycation through excess carbohydrate or glucose, that's where the gly comes in. The cholesterol particles become sticky, for what better term. So the glucose binds to this and it causes issues. Oxidation is caused through seed oils, linoleic acid in particular, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. And it's through this process that it drives the LDL into what's called pattern B. It damages our LDL particles. Now we have a problem because the LDL will circulate the body. It will now become engulfed by macrophages in the subendothelial space that recognize when this particle is damaged. This macrophage engulfs this damaged particle and it grows into a formed cell, which will lead to cardiovascular disease. But a healthy LDL particle does not get engulfed. It's the damaged LDL particle that gets recognized. These macrophages in the subendothelial space have scavenger receptors which recognize damaged particles. They don't engulf healthy particles. Therefore, if our LDL is healthy, this macrophage does not grow into a formed cell and cause an atherosclerotic plaque. So it's good to get tested. But your cholesterol, in my opinion, the higher the better in regards to LDL. It does change from person to person. Jen Unwin is double. I think she's 20 or close to 30 in regards to her cholesterol, which is incredibly high. Mine is double figures at 10 something. I think it was 10.26 last time I was tested. My LDL is probably higher than most people's total cholesterol. I wish it were higher, but that which goes against everything that we're told. But cholesterol heals and repairs the body, and that's really important to remember. So get it checked, but we need to check whether the LDL is damaged, as in pattern A, pattern B. We will see an increase if we are coming away from consuming vegetable oils. Vegetable oils contain phytosterols. Phytosterols look so close to human cholesterol that the body confuses it for human cholesterol. Therefore, it stops making real cholesterol, human cholesterol, which is why our cholesterol becomes lower. So when we consume vegetable oils, our cholesterol comes down, which is why the doctor pushes it, because they believe that a low cholesterol is healthier. But it's because the phytosterols are lowering the cholesterol unnaturally. We need cholesterol. When we're sick, cholesterol goes to work and it makes us fit and healthy. It fights off viruses and infections. So the more cholesterol that we have, the more ammo that we have in the arsenal, if you like, to go to town and fight off this virus and infection. If our cholesterol is low, then we don't have the army behind us to go to work. So this is why we need, and for lots of other reasons, we need cholesterol for the production of hormones also. Where was I going with this, Steve? We were, I was good.
Well, I didn't quite catch it. Can you repeat it all? No, joking. You were answering the question and going through it chronologically, which is really good. I mean, I'll just quickly jump in and say, also, when you're healing, the toxins that are stored in your body are coming out, which is why sometimes you feel worse. And people think, how can healing feel worse? But that's why. I mean, that's basically it. the things that are bad inside you are coming out. So I'm just taking the science out a little bit and making it a bit more sort of layman's. So that's one of the things. Cholesterol. If you reduce the amount of dietary cholesterol, your body just makes more. So your body is telling you, and I think even people that think high LDL is bad will say that point. But you've got to think, why is your body that stupid? Why is it when you stop giving it this poisonous substance, it makes more? Well, because it isn't poisonous. It needs a certain amount of cholesterol. And if you look at the name, plant sterols or a phytosterol, not cholesterol, and it's the same shape. All right. So if you eat plants, your LDL goes down, but you've got plant sterols in there which aren't measured. And if you add them together, it would. I bet you it would be the same level. Anyway, so that's it. So the next thing is heart palpitations. It says this way of eating has also caused me to have heart palpitations. Glug in unflavoured electrolytes for this and leg cramps, not helping yet. So possibly we could wrap that question up with that last little bit.
Yeah, so again, very common. The body's going through all of these changes, detoxing. Heart palpitations is common because as insulin drops, it releases sodium from the body, which is an essential mineral that we need. We need sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium to a degree. Not as much calcium as we're led to believe, but we need these compounds, and we need way more sodium than we've been told. Lack of sodium will cause this. Take in electrolytes or take in a quality Celtic sea salt can help remedy. But it is common. The other thing also is that I've noticed that when I lost a lot of weight initially, because I lost it so quickly, I was more aware of my heart beating because I'd lost a lot of the fat, and I could feel, my heart pumping through my body where I couldn't before. And I know that sounds silly, but it's when you're lying in bed in the still of night that you can feel, like I can feel my body working now, whereas I couldn't before. It was buffered by so many layers of fat that I was unaware of all of these things that were going on beneath. So I think we've become hyper aware also. So that's another thing there. Just coming back to the phytosterols really quickly also, just because I wanted to wrap that up. The phytosterols, despite lowering their cholesterol, they are not good for us. It's the phytosterols that lead to sunburn and contribute to skin cancers and things. When UVA hits the skin, cholesterol goes to town to synthesize vitamin D, and vitamin D acts as a sunscreen. This is why vitamin D is increased when we go out in the sun. Along with it is nitric oxide, and it's the benefit of the nitric oxide that we see that confers that benefit. It isn't the elevation in vitamin D, so it's not increase in vitamin D that is leading to the health benefits. It's the nitric oxide, and the vitamin D is a surrogate marker, if you like, of the UVA touching the skin, the production of nitric oxide and cholesterol producing that vitamin D, which we don't do if our bodies are full of phytosterols, because cholesterol, we need cholesterol to produce the vitamin D. The phytosterols cannot do this. And I've mentioned this a few times before, but I know we've got a few new guests today. If you are to Google a condition called cytosterolemia, cyto with an S, just type it as I say it, cytosterolemia. This is a genetically inherited condition which will increase risk of cardiovascular disease greatly. And it occurs in people who have the inability to excrete those phytosterols. So, and you heard that correctly. So basically our bodies are designed to excrete toxins. They're designed to remove linoleic acid in particular, and these that's what they're going off trailer, nothing to do with linoleic acid. The phytosterols themselves, the body's designed to move, and linoleic acid as it happens, but the body's designed to remove these plant toxins. So it will reduce and remove these toxins, and it'll lower it to a level of around 1 to 2%. Cytosterolemia is a condition in which that person is unable to remove that phytosterol, that plant toxin, that plant cholesterol. And in that case, we get an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, which goes completely against everything that we've ever been taught, because we are told that low LDL increases or lowers our risk of cardiovascular disease, but it is in fact the opposite. And you can see that with a simple Google search of that term, cytosterolemia. So the long of that is the cholesterol is incredibly good for us when it's healthy. We don't want glycated and oxidized cholesterol. Glycation is caused by excess sugar, and oxidation is through these vegetable oils, these seed oils, phytosterols, etc. And that's, there we are. That's Steve telling me. There we are. That'll do.
Yeah, and Jacqueline or Jack has got to complete the test at the end of this session to see if she's got all the answers right. So that's good.
We're testing here, yeah.
That's good. For those that are trying to take notes or worried that that's gone over the head a bit, there is a playback of this, which will be online for a month. And I'm looking at ways of getting the whole thing text-based as well, so you could actually download a transcript. Anyway, which, of course, at the moment, a lot of people are getting for free. So there are a few people that have joined school and are paying now, which is great. You can, if you want to do a subscription, you can do that. It's less than $4 a month. So it's $1 a week, basically, £3 for a month. So if you want to support us, you can by leaving the group and then rejoining. So just thought I'd say that. Right. Because we are trying to add all these things, but all this software costs money. Right. Next question, Gemma. Hello, Gemma. What would you recommend as being most beneficial for energy production and support with athletic performance? MCT oil or exogenous ketones? Nice question.
So both are beneficial. For athletic performance in particular, exogenous ketones, if we were to look at one alone, MCT will help because MCT will further break down into BHB. So MCT doesn't need to go through the same process of beta oxidation that fatty acids do. It enters the mitochondria directly. It doesn't need to go through the carnitine palmitoyl transferase transporters. Less steps involved, basically. So in short, MCT converts energy way quicker. But it's converted then into BHB, into beta hydroxybutyrate, which is what exogenous ketones are. So if you were to take exogenous ketones, you're skipping that other step and you're flooding the body with exogenous ketones. I'll keep this as simple as I can. Ketones are made in the liver. So MCT and fats that we consume are sent to the liver through the hepatic portal vein. They enter the cell, they go through beta oxidation, then they go through a series of steps. I won't bore you with them all, but it involves going through something called HMG-CoA, and they produce ketones or beta hydroxybutyrate. Then they leave the cells in the liver through the monocarboxylate transporters, and they're sent to the target cell. So they're made in the liver, now they're sent, say, to the bicep or the leg muscle, for example, where they enter that cycle again, and then that cell uses it for energy. Ketones themselves, when we consume them, they're already in the raw form of ketones, so they don't need to go through that process. They are sent directly to the target cell, so we get more energy, way higher, a lot quicker. So ketones are going to be more beneficial from that perspective. If consumed together, the amount of ketones that the body will utilize is going to be higher, so the co-ingestion works even better still. So for athletic performance, instant mental clarity, all of these benefits, as one standalone exogenous ketones, both will work better together. But there are lots of benefits to MCT in regards to health and well-being. MCT, particularly C8 caprylic acid, has been shown to increase the alpha diversity in the gut, help with things like SIBO, other gut issues. It's an incredible compound for feeding and healing and repairing the gut. Even if you were not living a ketogenic lifestyle, it will still produce ketones and feed the colonocyte in the gut and every other cell within the body. I use both, but in answer to the question, the one that's going to be superior alone is going to be the exogenous ketones. How was that for a short answer?
You win a prize. You did it in less than 5 minutes. That's really good. Oh, that's excellent. Right. Okay. The reason I was breaking the words down, by the way, is I think once you get into this way of eating, if you understand how the words are put together, you can understand a lot more because it's all really simple, like cholesterol. The whole bit is from bile, the Latin word for bile. So bile was first discovered in gallbladders, and that's how they saw the substance. So you've got this steroid, sort of bile steroid. That's basically what they're saying, and that's a phytosterol is from light phyto, and sterol is a steroid. So it's very similar, and that's why they've got similar names. But one comes from bile, and the other comes from light. So all of it is really simple, actually, once you get into it. Right. Steve has asked, what a great name, can you clarify the reduced need to supplement vitamin C when carnivore? I have someone I know asking and I want to explain it properly. And I'll just say one bit. There is vitamin C in meat. And there were many, many nutritional facts, websites and apps just saying there was no vitamin C in meat. And that was actually challenged by Amber O'Hearn. If you don't know Amber O'Hearn, that's someone to look up. She's very good. And she actually challenged and wrote to all these people and said, have you actually checked this? And they literally said, no, we just take it as a fact. And then when they tested red meat, lo and behold, it had vitamin C. So that's the first thing you can say, Steve. And that is verifiable. You can look that up. You can even do something, and sorry to hijack the answer, Rich, but I want to get this across. If you're using things like Google or ChatGPT, don't accept the first answer, all right? You can interrogate these website search engines and ChatGPT. I do this a lot, and I always get a different answer the second time. So if you was to put in, is there vitamin C in red meat, and it went no, you can then do a subsidiary question on ChatGPT and say, well, that doesn't stack up with the research where I found out that red meat does have vitamin C. And it will say, oh, my mistake. Yes, there is. Seriously, you can interrogate these artificial intelligence. I did this the other day where I was doing some research on what did humans eat in the Paleolithic period. And it said 80% plants, first answer. And I actually said back to ChatGPT, that's not my understanding. My research it's the other way around. And it honestly wrote, oops, yes, my mistake. It is 80% animal proteins. And I've got a screenshot of that, and I'm going to do a video about it, because when you think you're getting independent information, you're not. You're getting an advertiser's or an agenda-driven answer. Sorry to sound like I've got a tinfoil hat on. This is all provable because you can do these searches yourself. And when you hear someone saying you've gone against community guidelines, cross out community and put advertisers, because that's what they're actually saying. Our advertisers don't like you saying this. It's not. It's nothing to do with community, I promise you. So that's my little political rant. I have got the answer to this, but we'll do Richard as well because it's co-hosting. So, Richard, can you clarify the reduced need for vitamin C supplementation when carnivore?
Yep, perfect answer. Meat does contain vitamin C. It was always presumed not to contain vitamin C, so they never tested for it. Meat does contain less per gram than citrus fruits and things like kale, for example. But if we look at kale per 100 grams, kale contains around about, I think it's 94 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, which quickly turns into 20 when it's boiled. But in regards with kale, for example, kale also contains a phytoalexin called flavonoids. Now, a flavonoid is a compound that does many bad things in the body, contrary to popular belief, but one of the things it does, it blocks the absorption of vitamin C. So despite containing vitamin C, the amount of kale that is actually absorbed from, the amount of vitamin C that's actually absorbed from the kale is very low because of the flavonoids prevent this from being absorbed within the body. It also competes for iodine at the thyroid, so it prevents iodine from being absorbed in the thyroid, so it causes thyroid issues. This is why kale is a big contributing factor to things like this. But this, again, if you are not deep into your journey, I'm not saying not to eat these compounds, but we can get well into the weeds in regards to the understanding of how these affects the body. But when we look at meat, a piece of beef, for example, 12 ounces of beef will contain around 12 milligrams of vitamin C. Beef liver, 100 grams is around 24, 25, which all sound low comparative, but when you compare it to what's actually absorbed from things like kale, it's actually pretty high. Citrus fruits is more bioavailable, but the fact is we don't need a requirement for that level of vitamin C is far less than we've been led to believe. Vitamin C and glucose, they compete for absorption through the same transporter. They compete for absorption through the GLUT4 transporter within the cell. The more carbohydrate or glucose you consume, the more vitamin C that you need because of this competition that's occurring. When you reduce carbohydrate or glucose, the body absorbs more vitamin C because now the pathway is open. So when you reduce carbohydrate or glucose, our body absorbs way more of the vitamin C that we are consuming, and the animal proteins that we consume contain plenty of vitamin C. I've been living this way for over a decade, and I'm still waiting to suffer from scurvy. So it's and we know this to be fact also, because during the Napoleonic War, this is what they did to the soldiers that suffered with scurvy. They fed them dead horse meat, which is highly nutrient dense, by the way. But it's that's a talk. Do you remember all that thing that happened a few years ago with Bernard Matthews and the horse meat and things? But so I started to look into the benefits of horse. Anyway, I won't get into that, but it is very, very nutrient dense. But they fed that to the soldiers, and that cured their scurvy, just horse meat. We don't need any plant. We don't need fruit and veg. If you are consuming them, I'm not against that. But we should always predominate animal proteins, because our animal proteins contain everything that we need, not just to survive, but thrive. And I'm talking every single vitamin and mineral, from vitamin A down to zinc. And we've gone through this a number of times within the group, so I won't do it today for those that are avid listeners and listen to me rabbiting on about the same stuff every week. But we can cover this if you guys want to, maybe next week. But the body, the animal proteins contain everything that the body needs, absolutely everything, including fiber, which is another big concern. We're told that we need fiber. It's not the fiber that we need. We need a short-chain fatty acid. And in fact, the fact for that matter is we don't actually even need that if we're ketogenic. What happens when we consume the fiber is that it breaks down further into a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate, and the butyrate is what feeds the colonocyte in the gut. But that butyrate further breaks down into beta-hydroxybutyrate, a ketone body, which we produce by being in a ketogenic state. So we don't only feed the colonocyte that fiber comes in contact with, we feed every colonocyte, because we have beta-hydroxybutyrate running through our veins. But even if that were a concern, meat also contains short-chain fatty acids. It doesn't contain butyrate, but it contains isobutyrate, valerate, and propionate. And the body utilizes this at a far higher rate than the butyrate from vegetables. So we can think of animals as containing animal fiber. So we don't need plants for anything. We don't need fruit for anything. It's not to say that you can't consume them, but always prioritize animal proteins. Physically try to build your plate around your animal proteins. Meat, eggs, fish, cheese as a baseline, and add other things in if you need to, if you feel the need to. I think gravitating initially, it's important to do so if you're coming from a standard diet, because it seems incredibly restrictive. And by also doing so, which we covered during the live last night, really briefly, was the effect that going strict carnivore can have on some people, coming from a background of being highly toxic, if you like. The body will go through this heavy detoxification phase, and it will release toxins from the tissue into the bloodstream, and it can make you feel unwell. We know of oxalates as being one. Sometimes keeping a little bit of the naughty stuff in as we gravitate into the lifestyle allows this release of the toxins from the tissues to be lower, causing less issues. So sometimes incremental changes can confer more benefit. If you are incredibly unwell and you need to be super, super strict, then that's another avenue to go down in regards to being strict carnivore. Yeah, how does that sound, Steve? Has that answered the question, do you reckon, Steve?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think, we just reiterate the bit about glucose as well. Glucose and vitamin C compete for the same transporter. So when you take glucose out of your diet, you don't need so much vitamin C because it's not competing for that transporter. Transporter, all that means is the outside of the cell has a membrane, and you want to get stuff into the cell. You need something to transport it in. Richard mentioned the GLUT4. If you just break that down, that's just glucose transporter, shortened to GLUT, GLUT, and 4 because it's the fourth one that was identified. And it's one of those that gets worked when you exercise. That's one of the things. It's famous for being inside the cell and translocates, posh way of saying it, moves to the membrane, which is the outside of the cell. So it can receive more glucose, which is why exercise is really good if you've got diabetes. So GLUT1, for instance, is sort of pretty much everywhere in the body, and it's what's identified for your basal amount of glucose. Basal is just a posh way of saying the sort of level you need for 24 hours a day. And then you get the GLUT2, which is sort of like the liver, the pancreas, and all that sort of stuff. Bit more specialized. GLUT4 is the one that translocates. Don't worry about GLUT3. It's a bit of a sort of in the middle. So yeah, I'm going to teach people a little bit every time we do this. Then eventually, when you do your scientific answer, they'll be able to also unpick it and think, oh, that all makes sense now. Well, that's good. Right. Of course, that could be just as boring as going to school for some people, and I do apologise. Right. So Kate has said, I had a great one-to-one with Richard last week and decided to do the elimination diet to see if I tolerate eggs. I have MS. So yes, I have a few people on my channel, actually, success stories reversing MS. I started the Lion diet today after gradually integrating this way of eating over a couple of months. I'm just eating beef, lamb, salt, and drinking water. I was going to do this for 2 weeks and then try eggs and bacon. Does that sound okay? That sounds great to me. Sounds like a great idea. What do you reckon?
Yeah, perfect. Spot on.
Yeah, good. And this is the other thing. If you can book either of us for coaching, you can still come in and ask questions, you see. So, you know, you can do backup questions for nothing on this. It's great, isn't it? Matthew, shy Matthew with a question. He never asks questions, Matthew. This is a new one for me. Supplementing with citrulline also increases nitric oxide in the body. Well, that's brilliant, Matthew. Actually, I was only teasing. Yes, that's very true. Citrulline is an amino acid, and you can make it yourself, but also you can get it from.
That's what I've got in there. So I've got some citrulline in there. I'm trying not to tip it with my electrodes. But yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay. So thanks, Rich, for the answer. Just to add to that, is there... Oh, yes. So Jim has... Thank you, Rich, for the answer. Just to add to that, is there any risk of taking too many? So I'm assuming she's talking about electrolytes.
Was it electrolytes?
Oh, no, and MCT oil or exogenous ketones. Is there danger?
So... Too much of anything is going to be counterintuitive. I wouldn't say that it's going to be dangerous, but if you take too much MCT, it can lead to gastro distress. And you're going to get this if you consume too much fat, for example, also. So MCT is a type of fat. It's a medium chain triglyceride. It's found in animal proteins as well as coconuts and other compounds as well. But it's incredibly good for us. But if we consume too much of any, if we drink too much double cream, we'd probably end up on the toilet. It doesn't mean necessarily that butter or cream or fat that we've just rendered from the meat is bad. It just means that we've overconsumed it. The downside to overconsuming too much exogenous ketones is that if you overconsume, it's going to downregulate your body's ability to produce ketones naturally. So if we flood the body with something from an exogenous source, then it's not going to make it from within inside the body. So it switches off your endogenous ketone production, which sounds bad. But the fact is the body doesn't need to make ketones when you've put it in from an exogenous source. So it utilizes these ketones. But what exogenous ketones will do, it will increase those transporters that we mentioned earlier and increase that adaptation process. So when the exogenous ketones that we've drunk have come out of the body then goes into overdrive to produce those ketones because it loves the way that we feel. So now the body starts to ramp up ketone production to a higher rate than it was prior because it wants to utilize and benefit from having those ketones. To produce ketones, we need to metabolize fat, which is why you'll hear some people say that exogenous ketones could be used as a fat loss, magic bullet. I wouldn't recommend it as that. I do use it for a number of purposes, but the problem with relying on that for that mechanism is that we can consume it too much. So if you were to use it once or twice a day, fantastic. You're going to have all of these benefits, but some people will just take it constantly. And what I found previously is some of my clients have just taken ketones and then gone and eat Domino's pizza and so on and so forth. And then wondered why they've actually gained weight from taking the ketones. The other thing that you want to try to avoid is eating around the time that you take the ketones if weight loss is your goal. Because if you are flooding your body with exogenous ketones and eating the same time, then some of it is going to be stored. And the body's going to preference, it's going to take oxidative priority from the exogenous ketones, and we're going to store more of the nutrients, if you like, from the food that's consumed. I use ketones to lose weight. I use them when I co-consume with the MCT, but I only use it once or twice a day, but I'll be careful not to eat around it either. So yeah, I mean, you can consume too much. The volume, the amount that you would have to consume to cause damage is excessive. It's a lot. So it's recognized generally that we can take 36 grams of ketones per day. Is it grams or milligrams? I think it'd be milligrams, wouldn't it? Basically, as if 4 grams. In fact, it might be grams. So 4 grams per serving, 12. So basically 3 full servings per day of like a raspberry bomb has been shown to confer massive benefits in the testing from external sources in regards to ketone research from years and years and years ago. This is an ongoing thing. I don't take 3 of the raspberry bomb per day. I have done, but I tend to take the tub version, which is a scoop, which is a third of that, and maybe a couple of times per day. So just be sensible, use it as and when required, ideally during a fasted state, or take before a workout or even after a workout, because it will help with repair and healing. It'll help to block inflammation. It will help increase EPO, which is that drug that Lance Armstrong was busted for in the Tour de France. EPO is a compound that they take from an exogenous source, but the body makes it naturally, and ketones will increase this. And basically just allows the body to increase red blood cells so we can heal and repair the body quicker. But the body makes it. We have the ability to upregulate how much we can make naturally. And it's very good for the brain. So before doing podcasts and lives, I'll quite often take exogenous ketones so I can flood my brain with readily available energy and come out with lots of big words that I can't normally form if I don't. Especially when I'm tired.
Yes. I mean, just get on a semantic thing. Too much of anything. If someone says, what happens if you take too much? You can have too much water. You can have too much oxygen in the air, which will not help your breathing. So Richard wasn't being picky there. It's just that there is, the expression too much is exactly that, too much. So anyway, right. Andrew's put, hi guys, new to the group, working with Rich, love the content. If you're exogenous is outside, something from the outside, by the way, ingesting ketones, will your body not down-regulate the endogenous production, which is the internal production of it, by the same mechanism as taking exogenous testosterone slows down your body's natural production of it?
Yeah, which is exactly what we just covered, isn't it? So yeah, we've just covered that. So yes, it does switch off that production initially because your body doesn't need it, but using it carefully and sparingly. And by that, as I say, I mean, that's up to as much as 36 or 3 full servings, if you like, of the raspberry bomb, which is the equivalent of 9 servings of the scoops of the tubs. It initially switches it off, but the body upregulates those pathways and enzymes. And once it's excreted, the body actually produces more of them. So it does, but the testing and studies relating to that, they don't measure the ketone production after, and they don't measure it in people who are already ketogenic. And that's the difference. If you give exogenous ketones to a person who isn't ketogenic, then it's going to flood the body with ketones, but they're not going to be producing ketones much after because they're not in a ketogenic state. So there are there's a lot of nuance in regards to these studies when it comes to the ketone production and testing and so on and so forth.
Yep, brilliant. Victoria, I think with the final question, any advice for if you've fallen off the wagon and eaten more sugar in a day than you've eaten this entire year? This happened on Friday and now struggling to not give in to the sugar cravings and get back to carnivore, asking for a friend. I like that last bit, asking for a friend. Yeah. My advice in this situation is always to try and make your next meal carnivore. If you fall off the wagon, firstly, don't sweat over it. Secondly, don't get guilty over it. And thirdly, make sure that your next meal is carnivore and just glide back into it. And if you're eating and you're full, your cravings will dissipate. This is not to be confused with emotional eating, which is a little bit different. if you are emotionally eating, then the best thing is to sort of be honest with yourself and say, wow, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to make myself feel better. And then project yourself about 10 minutes in advance and say, right, will I feel better in 10 minutes after I've eaten this? Invariably, the answer will be no. But I am still dividing the emotion with the intellect. And we still sometimes make emotional decisions which aren't right. But the more you practice that, the more you will be able to control it. So that's it. So like an alcoholic says, take one day at a time, I would say take one meal at a time, but just say, right, I'm going to eat, and then the next meal is going to be carnivore, then the next meal after that's going to be carnivore, and just keep repeating that ad infinitum. But what do you think, Rich?
Yeah, look, I've fallen off the wagon personally so many times, more times than I care to remember. And I've been doing this for a long time. I'm incredibly strict now, although I don't deem it being strict because I love the way that I live. I love the food that I eat, but it's just taken me this long to get to the point where seeing someone else eating a cupcake or a bar of chocolate doesn't really do much to me anymore, whereas I would have been craving, and I would if there were chocolate in the cupboard in the house at 2 a.m. in the morning, I'd be raiding the lot and everything would be demolished. I couldn't just eat one. I can't eat one of anything. If I eat a pack of biscuits, the full packet's gone. If I start eating a box of roses or whatever it is, the whole tub is demolished. I'm a food addict. I'm addicted to food. I've just changed the food that I'm addicted to. So it's taken me that long. So I have fallen off the wagon so many times. And I think you're right, taking one meal at a time is the key. There are other things that you can do also. Metrics that I've put in place. If you have the ability to do so, make sure that there's no chocolate or anything tempting in the house. You're far less likely to wake up at 2 a.m. and jump in the car to drive for it if it's not there. I've done that, mind. I have done that. 2 a.m. to McDonald's or to the local garage for chocolate, when I've been craving that extensively. So we've all been there. If it's not in the house, it's harder to get to. If it is in the house, if you have children or other family members who are consuming these compounds, and I know this sounds stupid, but I promise it works. Put their stuff into a cupboard and have your own little cupboard. Have your cupboard with your things in and have all of their chocolates in one cupboard. And you mentally tell yourself that is not your cupboard. You're not to go in there. That's not for you. All of your things are in this, and this, and so on and so forth. If they're in the fridge, give them a shelf. Put all of these things onto one shelf, and you just trick your brain. You tell your brain that is not your shelf. Those items are not for you. And I promise that does make a difference. And you will, if you do that, you will notice, because you'll walk into the kitchen and you'll go to the cupboard and remember telling yourself that that's not your cupboard. I promise that works. Physical things that you can do. You can increase the consumption of omega-3s, mackerel, sardine, salmon. Omega-3s increase something called cholecystokinin, which is a potent inhibitor of these cravings. We can get more sunlight. So sunlight through the eyes increases melanocyte-stimulating hormone, which also helps us block cravings. And again, I know that sounds stupid, but just going out early in the morning, get sunlight into the eyes, so with no glasses on, increases melanocyte-stimulating hormone, and it prevents these cravings. It doesn't stop them completely. It just allows you to manage them. Taking glutamine in a powder form, if you are craving, just putting some powder of glutamine into a glass and drinking it, that has been shown to help combat those cravings. Exogenous ketones has also been shown to increase BDH, which helps with inhibition control. So that's been shown to help cut cravings also. I think fatty acid, saturated fats. So if you drink teas or coffees or anything like that, double cream, lots of butter, lots of meat, the saturated fats also have an impact on cholecystokinin, which is this hormone that's released that prevents and helps block cravings. And what I would add to that really quickly is understanding the mechanism in which the cravings are occurring, and it does so through the neurotransmitters. So we are hardwired to chase things like serotonin and dopamine. They've been essential for the survival of the human race. Without them, we go searching for them. When we are eating a clean lifestyle, such as a clean ketogenic or carnivore-based lifestyle, our neurotransmitters are being produced, and now we are creating serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, on all of these things. If we start to consume certain compounds like excess sugar, but firstly, sugar blocks the prefrontal cortex. It blocks our body's ability for reasonable thinking, which is why we jump into the car and drive to McDonald's or the garage at 2 a.m. in the morning. It blocks our process to think reasonably. So just removing it, I know that sounds stupid, by keeping it out, if you continue to fuel that beast, you continue to block the prefrontal cortex. By not eating it and pushing through allows you to power through. Other compounds, grains and cereals and nuts and seeds and things, they contain lectins and phytic acid, which will block the cofactors, things like zinc, iron, magnesium, vitamin B3, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, iron, cofactors that allow us to produce our neurotransmitters. So our neurotransmitters come from 3 amino acids, tryptophan, phenylalanine, and tyrosine. To produce our neurotransmitters, we need other ingredients. We need those cofactors. But if we consume, say, muesli or cereal or a bar that is chocolate that contains these grains, the phytic acid and lectins within them, and other things also, things like tomatoes and bell peppers, and many other things, the list goes on, they will block the absorption of things like zinc, iron, magnesium by as much as 100%, preventing the body from being able to create these neurotransmitters, which drives us into chasing that neurotransmitter fix. And we can get that neurotransmitter fix by eating something sweet. And one of the mechanisms in which it does so, and I won't bore you too much with this, but serotonin, for example, is created from tryptophan. Now, tryptophan is an amino acid that is in all the foods that we eat. But when we consume sugar increases insulin. Insulin pulls all of the nutrients out of the bloodstream, including the amino acids, and sends it into the cell. That's what insulin does with glucose and many other things, amino acids and so on and so forth. Except for tryptophan, it leaves tryptophan circulating in the blood. And now tryptophan is available for synthesis into serotonin. So when we eat chocolate, we don't only get a dopamine fix, but we get a serotonin fix. And this is why we feel so good. And this is why we feel that but it's short-lived. So it doesn't last as long. So that the curve is quite short and steep. So when we crash again, we want this fix again. So now we head for our chocolate for another fix just to do this. And now we're stuck in this continuous cycle, if you like, that we can't get out of. So understanding that the foods you consume prevent the body from producing these naturally, and you need to not eat the sugar because it only fuels that process. It fuels that release of serotonin and dopamine, and it blocks our body's ability for real thinking, for sensible thoughts, if you like. So omega-3s, fatty acids, sunlight, glutamine as a supplement if you want to. And stay active, be active. I know that sounds like a silly answer, but that does really work. When you are busy, you forget that you're hungry, quite often. So a few simple hacks.
Yeah, and the proof of the pudding, terrible phrase actually in this community, the proof of the steak, proof of the protein. There you go, proof of the protein is... I doubt many of you are sitting there thinking, wow, I'm going to go off and get some chocolate, because you're sitting doing something. So your brain is active as well. Right, we've got 5 minutes left. We've got 2 questions. One, I think, is a really quick one, Rich. Is there a good brand of exogenous ketones? Because in Italy, we can't order Keto Pro products. Can you think of a brand that in Italy?
Yes, Simona, yes, we've looked into that. I need to sort that out. For some reason, it's difficult to ship into Italy. Good brands, if you can find Real Ketones, they're a good brand. Perfect Keto, also another good brand. Stick with those if you can. The rest... Yeah, there are others, but those are the 2 that I've used and tried in the past. Real Ketones, I think, would be preferenced. Perfect Keto maybe second. You should be able to find those in Italy, but I am working on getting them into Italy for you.
Great stuff. And the final question from Steve is, I have heard the argument in muscle building circles, which don't go in muscle building circles. That's the first thing. Oh, meatheads, you don't want to talk to them. But that if you stop the inflammation process, you impair muscle building. Where does this belief even come from?
Yeah, so look, it is partly true. When we need to cause that damage, that inflammation does allow us to heal and repair. But it's not as clean cut as that, because there's different inflammatory markers and things going on in this in regards to inflammation from being sick and inflammation from training are two different things. So when we talk about helping with inflammation, it's usually to do with inflammatory cytokines. It can help with inflammation from training, but in a positive way. I take ketones every day to help with inflammation, but it doesn't stop the inflammation dead in its tracks, and it didn't stop me allowing to still build. But what I'd come back to with that is CBD. So a lot of athletes, bodybuilders use CBD to help with recovery. One of which was, oh my goodness, who am I thinking of? Who is our good friend tied into Steve? I can't remember his name. The original mass monster, Steve. You must remember.
Mass monster.
Dorian Yates.
Dorian Yates. Yes, how can I forget that? So Dorian Yates was an avid user of CBD products before they were a thing. He was known as the original mass monster. So I mean, there's two conflicting things there, isn't it? If that was hindering his process, I'm sure he wouldn't have made the career that he did. We don't want to completely block inflammation. We do need some, but I do believe excessive inflammation is damaging also. So we need to maintain it. I did that run yesterday that I told you guys about on the live, and I'm still suffering now. The inflammation that I'm suffering with is bad. So I'll be in a cold bath later for 10 minutes. I'll be taking the exogenous ketones to help. Now it's gone past the point where it's beneficial and it's causing problems. I can barely walk, so which is a problem.
Yeah, and I think just to bring it to layman's terms as well, we can prove that there's different types of inflammation, because if you bang your knee against the table, you will get inflammation. You'll get a red mark and it will go hot. Well, that's completely different to the training physiological response of lifting up a weight and your muscles in your biceps, for instance, thinking, I've got to get bigger if this guy is going to keep doing this. But completely different inflammation, completely different. And the body is really smart. To get it really basic, there's good and bad inflammation, isn't there? You've got a bad injury, a trauma injury. Even the inflammation there is actually good because it's trying to fix it. Whereas the sort of small micro tears in the muscle is your body just doing what it naturally does. There's no way you're going to get bigger or stronger unless you have your brain, your central nervous system saying, right, well, if this, growing up, if this child is going to try to climb this tree all the time because they're trying to get fruit or whatever, then you've got to have inflammation. You've got to have a training response to get them bigger and stronger. So that's deeply embedded as a human, that you would have different pathways for different things. One to basically fix an injury and one to actually make you bigger in response to your needs. So I think it's just reductionist again, and I hate using that word, but it really is that. It really is that. People reduce it to the word inflammation is bad, or if we got that, it's going to stop X and Y, but it isn't, because the whole point of training is to get the response. And then you get into, well, that's why people can overtrain, and this is why you need to rest and recover, because the body needs all that. Anyway, right, we've done 60 minutes. Thank you, Rich. Do you want to wrap up tonight?
Yeah, fantastic. Great to see you all. I just literally put this into the chat, so great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. It's great to see the numbers growing, and it's great to a couple of you that I've had one-to-ones with are regulars on here now, and I've told you all during the consultations to use this. This is a fantastic tool to stay in touch, to use us as a soundboard for tracking your progress and asking those questions in between consultations. And everyone has some fantastic questions tonight. Considering we didn't have any on the group, I was expecting either not an awful lot of people to join, or to the questions to be incredibly poor, but they've been fantastic questions, and it's always keeping me on my toes, so thank you.
Yeah. And did you want to talk about the membership, the supporting us price?
Yeah, so you've mentioned earlier when we've introduced that $1 a month, or $1 a week, it is, isn't it? $4 a month. So if any of you guys would like to help support the channel and us producing the content for this, that'd be massively appreciated. As Stephen said, obviously you guys have, a lot of you have joined before we brought the pricing in. I'm really pleased and I'm really grateful that you guys are supporting. And if you don't want to contribute to that is our gift to you, basically, for the support that you've given us. And I'm happy with that. So if you don't want to subscribe and pay for that, that is fantastic. I just really appreciate the support you've given us to date. If you do, even better, because it will help us create the content and can put more time into building and growing the community, more content, more of these lives. We've already bumped the live up now to an hour, haven't we? More regularly, which is fantastic. And maybe we can look at doing more of these and more courses. Steve and I are working on some of the courses that we've spoken about briefly recently in regards to not qualified courses, but courses that we can put you through to teach you what we have learned. It won't give you any qualification in the real world, but it will allow you to understand and make better choices in life and maybe teach other people also. But that's something that we're looking to work on. But all of these things take time and they do cost money. We do pay for school. We do pay for the YouTube broadcast that we do through
StreamYard.
That's it, yeah. And the other one, there's the other one that we use also, Apple Rumble.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, all of this does, so any contribution would be massively appreciated, but there's no pressure for you guys who have supported us, which I'm massively appreciative for. But thank you all, been brilliant as usual, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me, and if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.